Welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show. Another exciting show, another exciting guest. And yes, I'm repping the Miami Hurricane colors today. It's funny because our guest recognized it right off the bat. And he don't even really care for Miami, but he recognized greatness. And we're going to talk about the greatness of the Hurricanes versus the greatness of Clemson, because that's where he went to school. That's where his pro career launched from. Well, really it launched long before that, but he's going to get into that. So without further ado, let's welcome the one, the only, Mr. Entertainment himself, Mr. Ricky Sapp, to the show. What's up, big guy?
Man, what's up? What's up? Hey, look, I'm so excited to be on your show, but listen to me now. Before you say Clemson, make sure you say the best school in the world when you talk about Clemson, okay? Make sure you say that.
Oh my God. Do we really got to show the stats? Do we really got to start off?
We ain't got to do stats. We ain't got to do stats. We're just talking about in this era. All right. We ain't talking about that old era.
Oh, okay. Okay. Don't let Michael Irvin watch this show, because then he'll come on.
I know.
Talking crazy. So before we get started, Ricky, tell the viewers a little bit about you before we go into your beautiful journey.
Man, I'm a passionate, energized guy from Bamberg, South Carolina, small town over here in South Carolina. Grew up with my mom, my dad, older sister, have a younger sister and brother. That's twins. And, right away I got into playing sports when I was young. My mom showed me this stadium, South Carolina State Bulldog Stadium. And for me, that's where, as a kid, I started to dream big. So that's just a little bit about me, man.
When you say that your mom took you by the stadium, and you just mentioned a key word, that's when you learned. Well, I won't say learned. That's when the manifestation of something greater started with you. Like, tell us a little bit about that. How did that even come about?
Man, my mom and dad worked at the same place in Orangeburg, South Carolina, which is 18 miles from Bamberg. And one day, my mom was going to get my dad from work. It was during the day, and she had me and my brother and sister with her. And she happened to drive by South Carolina State University football stadium. Mm-hmm. And as we was riding by it, I was like, Mom, what in the heck is that? And my mom was like, well, that's where the South Carolina State Bulldogs football team play. And I was like, it's amazing. I've never seen anything like that before. I've never seen nothing that big before. You know what I'm saying? So when I saw it in that moment, she saw the excitement on my face. And then every now and then she would take me by that stadium. Mm. And as I started playing football, I thought about that stadium. And the thought that came to my mind was, I'm going to play in the NFL one day, and I'm going to play in a stadium like that one day. So for me, that's where I started to dream big, man.
Ricky, how old were you when your mom started to take you by the stadium?
I was young, man. I was probably 10 years old, and my mom took me by that stadium. And when she saw my face light up like that, every now and then she would drive me by that stadium. When
you first put on the pads as a young lad, what was that like for you? Because now you got to put the thought, the manifestation, or the power, you got to put some engine behind this. So when you first put on those pads, what was that like for you as a kid?
It was an amazing feeling. And here's the thing, when I first started playing football, I started, I think, a game late because I had no idea we had part one of football. We rolled by the gate and we saw practice. And I said, Mom, can I play? My mom said, yeah, you gotta go ask. So, I jump out the car, I go ask, I start playing. I started off playing guard, offensive guard.
Really?
And after that, after my first game playing guard, my uncle was like, man, you gotta tell him to put you at running back. So I started playing running back, and man, I'll never forget, man, getting tackled the first time and just thinking like, man, this is it. This is awesome. And then beating people around the corner and then tackling people, so I always tell people, knowing what I know now about, the concussions and all that,
Mhm.
I would still go back and play football.
Really? Were you, let me put it a
Yeah.
different
Oh
way.
yeah.
Were you bigger than most of the people that were on the smaller teams? Were
Yeah.
you like above average for your age?
Oh, I was always the tallest, always tallest, skinny with a big head. But yeah, I was always the tallest out of everybody, always.
How did you
Yep.
know? How did you know
Yep.
what position you
And
wanted to
right away,
play?
I learned that I was fat.
How did you know what position you wanted to play? Because
And I did, man. Honestly,
what was that, Ricky?
I didn't know. Yeah. You said what now?
No, I was asking what position did you really want to play when you first stepped on the field? Because you're now being introduced for football for the first time, and
Yeah.
tons of different positions. I know we tried different things, but how did you learn to pick the exact your comfortability?
My uncle, man. My after my first game, he was like, "Listen, tell your coach you want to play running back." So I asked him. He put me at running back. And after that, I thought that I was going to be a running back. Like I
Right.
really thought that I was going to be a 6'4", 255 running back. So of course, when I got into middle school, I played DN, but I played running back all the way up until I got to high school. So I thought running back was going to be my position. But then I get in high school, of course, it was like, no, you could be a DN. And then they tried to make me a receiver, but I couldn't catch. But I did return kickoffs in high school. I did do
Wait a
that.
you can't catch. Okay. I'm
I
I'm
can
I'm
catch it
I'm
like
adding
this.
I'm
I
putting
couldn't
it,
catch it like this though.
I'm putting the checklists down to show you at the end of the day why Miami Hurricane is the shit. So we know you can't catch. So that's a check by your name. It can't catch. So you wind up playing running back pretty much your whole
Uh,
entire career in high school. But all of a sudden they want you to switch. How difficult was it for you to switch to that position?
you know what? I was mad because I thought that again, I was gonna play running back all my life. So actually I got it when I got in 10th grade because I couldn't play football in ninth grade. Uh, but my 10th grade year when I started playing, it was like, man, we'll put you at receiver and DN. I'm like, man, I played DN, but I'm running back. It was
Mhm.
like, come on, man. You're 6'4". So anyway, they put me at DN. And then I hear the coaches start saying, like, man, you got something at the end, man. And of course, we don't see our greatness. We don't see what our gifts are. So,
Right.
I'm listening to the coach say, man, the end is what you need to play. So once I stopped playing, I played my first game at the end. The rest was history, man. I fell in love with it.
What was so spectacular about playing DN versus running back? Because we're going to keep moving with this, but what was so different for you and what was so electrifying? Was it the fact that the coaches saw potential in you that you didn't see, because you saw what you can do at the running back position, but now it's elevated to something even more greatness for you?
Man, when I put my helmet on my 10th grade year and played in my first high school football game, and I remember, making my first play or hitting the quarterback. I'm gonna be honest with you, man. It felt like I could be anybody I wanted to be. Like it felt like I could be a superhero. Like the energy and passion that I had was just unbelievable, man. And like the crowd noise to me went silent,
Yeah.
and I just was a whole different person. So for me, it it took off, and that's how I knew, like, all right, I'm playing the right position, man. I love this. I'm passionate about it. I'm talking trash, doing all that good stuff because
Yeah.
off the field I was like that. I was a quiet kid, so I knew that I was playing the right position when that happened.
I'm gonna tell you a little story. I started
Yeah.
playing 114 pounds, played wide receiver, a little bit of tailback. I hate getting hit. When I went to semi-pro, I was like, they was like, why don't you play punt returner? Play punt returner and I was small, so people would literally just pick me up and throw me out of bounds, like literally
Yeah.
just come out of bounds.
Yeah.
when I switched to corner and safety because I was fast and got the chance to hit somebody, oh my God.
Different, right?
I was like, oh, I don't have to get hit, but I can hit somebody hard as I want to. Oh, let's switch the positions here with ease. What was that like for you now that you're now the punisher? You was getting punished at a running back's position, but now
Yeah.
you really get to hit somebody. What was that like for you?
Man, I loved it, man. And playing DN, the one thing I loved was that I was fast, man. I was fast. So in my mind, I was like, the faster I can get to this guy, the faster I can end the play, the faster I get behind the line of scrimmage, the faster I get to this guy. So for me, it was all about how fast can I get to this guy? And
Mhm.
I loved it. It's kind of like playing backyard football. Like I didn't want to at that point, I didn't want to run the ball. I wanted to catch you. I want you to feel me, and I was going to talk trash. So it was an amazing, amazing feeling to know that every game I suited up, I was going to be chasing that quarterback. I was going to be chasing that running back. I was going to be trying to beat that offensive tackle. So for me, that's what it was, man.
You wind up in this position. Now you're getting ready to go off to college.
Yeah,
Did you
yeah.
really think what do you think was an impact for the coaches in college to look at you to get you to a D1 school?
Man,
Because you went from running back and
mm,
I know they got that game footage, but now
oh
you
yeah.
you're mastering this position. What was it that you felt that the D1 schools was looking at you that made you such a high priority on their list?
My ceiling, because they looked at, I had a high ceiling because I was 6'4", about 225 pounds. I was fast, man. I was running like a 4.3, 4.4 in high school. So they saw the potential. They
Mhm.
saw me playing DN. They saw how fast I was getting off that edge. So they saw the potential in me to be able to come in and be an impact player. So I think that's what caught their attention, man. This 6'4", 225, 230-pound guy. We lied in high school, so I was 225. But I was 6'4". I'm 6'4", about almost 225, running that fast, man. That's what I think caught their attention. You know,
What were you lacking in your high school development before you got to
size,
college?
size, man, size. Believe it or not, when I got to Clemson, man, when we had our first weigh-in, I was 205. They had DBs that was bigger than me when I got to Clemson. My freshman year at Clemson, I played at 225, man. So some games I got my behind tossed around a little bit. So the main thing that I was liking was size, and I had to put on size my sophomore year at Clemson.
That's so funny because I had the same problem
Yeah,
when I went to college, man. It was like you're not big enough. That was almost like a Herschel Walker. I had the ability to play the
mm.
multiple sports, but I didn't have the size. And you know what was even more tricked out? I've never lifted weights in school. I
Wow,
actually got a F in weightlifting.
are you serious?
Got a F, fat F. I did everything under the sun to not work out until my senior year when we were talking about National Signing Day.
Yeah,
Um, the coach was like, "You got to go in the gym and we got to do an evaluation on you, the report."
yeah,
And I remember telling the coach, I said, "Dude, I'm afraid of weights." And he started showing me how to lift and technique. Fast
yeah.
forward now, I wind up being a professional bodybuilder and trust people how to go, ain't you the kid that got an F in weightlifting? But go back to what you just said, it always boils down to that size when you're getting ready to transfer into college. You can have all the attributes, but size really does play a major difference.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%.
So
Yeah,
what were some of the schools that came after you your senior year to go to, and why did you pick Clemson?
man, I was blessed, man, because I had every D1 offer, man. I had over 50 Division I offers. Some of the main schools that I remember coming to my school were Tennessee when they had Farmer, um, Florida. Man, I talked to the late Pete, the Penn State coach. Was it Pete Carroll? What was his name?
Um, I know
Oh
you're talking
man,
about the guy with the
yeah,
glasses.
Yeah, but I remember talking to him on the phone. I remember his coaches coming to my school. I remember Oklahoma coming all the way to Bamberg, South Carolina, Georgia all coming, Florida State, all these schools coming. So um, my top schools, man, I grew up a Florida State fan, believe it or not. I grew up liking Florida State because of my cousin. He loved Florida State. So I started watching and I was like, man, I like Florida State. So of course, when it came down to recruiting, I was like, yeah, Florida State will be definitely my top three. What ended up happening was I
Wait a
went to
minute.
Clemson.
Hold down a minute. Don't try to
I know.
weasel out of this conversation now.
I
Who
gonna
was
say
your
something
who,
like that.
yeah, who was your top five? You mentioned all these other ones, but who was your top five?
Man, my top five was Clemson, Florida State, Georgia, LSU, and man, who was the other team? Definitely was Miami. Florida. Florida was definitely a top. I think I'm a top five. Yeah,
Wait a minute. You said it
definitely.
definitely wasn't Miami. Okay, why?
Yeah, I mean,
Why?
I
Why?
never even, you know what? And it's crazy because I never even really thought about Miami like that. And they sent letters and offered me a full scholarship, but I don't know. I guess because I was a Florida State guy, man. I was like, man,
Okay, we can
I
ready to we
can't
can
rock,
ready to end this. We can ready to end this show right now.
I can't rock with Miami, man. I like Florida State, man.
So what was so spectacular about Clemson? Because let's get real. During that time era, Clemson
Yeah,
wasn't exactly a school
no, not at
that
all.
when you compared it to a Florida State, when you compare it to a Joe Paterno, that's his name, Joe Paterno, a
That's
Penn
the name. Yeah.
State. I'm surprised you didn't mention Notre Dame.
I'm gonna be very honest. I'm gonna be very honest with you. When they called and offered me a full scholarship, my head coach told him, he said, "Man, he ain't that strong in the classroom, man. I know y'all real strong over there about grades and all that stuff." So they offered me a full scholarship, but never really looked into it like that.
Okay.
But I remember my coach saying something like that, like, "Man, I don't know about going over there, education," and so yeah, that's what my head coach told me Notre Dame.
So you wind up choosing Clemson. I mean, like, did you feel you can make a major impact as soon as you got on the field with them, or what was it? Because, like I just said, Clemson wasn't exactly a powerhouse. I don't think they became a powerhouse until they had Donovan McNabb.
Well, I'm gonna say this to you. I didn't even think about
Hold on a
Clemson.
minute. What are you looking at me like that for? Donovan McNabb did play for Clemson.
No, he didn't play Clemson. He
No,
played
he
at
didn't. Who did he
Syracuse.
play for?
Syracuse.
Syracuse. Who
Syracuse.
was the
Yeah,
quarterback that
Syracuse.
played with Donovan that played with Clemson besides Deshaun Watson? They had a good quarterback.
So you're talking about Taj Boyd. So
That's what I'm
Taj
talking about.
Boyd was, yep.
Okay,
Taj
you got
Boyd
me on
and
that one, dude.
yeah, and then Deshaun Watson, then Trevor Lawrence. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Before that though, Homer Jordan won the first championship we had. He was a black quarterback here in 1981. Um, but when I first started the recruiting process, I wasn't even thinking about Clemson. I dang sure wasn't thinking about that school in Columbia, the Gamecocks. I was thinking about all the other big schools, Florida State, Virginia Tech, and stuff like that. But this is what my head coach said. He said, "Look, we have to look at the in-state schools. You're from South Carolina, so let's at least look at them." I ended up going to Clemson, and I was like, okay. The Gamecocks, I didn't care for them because I'm from the country, so I didn't want to be in the city. I didn't like the city.
Mhm.
I went to Clemson, and I was like, man, I kind of like it. So I ended up making, Clemson in my top five. But in my mind, I was like, I'm going to Florida State. But I kept going back to Clemson, and every time I went back to Clemson, I was like, man, I feel something when I go to the school. So when it came down to it, when they told me, they was like, well, Florida State is like 5 hours. I forgot how they said it was maybe 5.5 hours away or something like that, maybe
Mhm.
farther. And I was like, I ain't trying to have my mom and dad have to travel that far. So
Right.
I said, man, so I remember telling my coach, I said, take me back to Clemson, man. I want to go back and visit one more time. I came back to Clemson and I committed. And that was at the end of my junior year. I committed, and it was the best decision I made, man. It was just something about this place that just kept hitting my spirit, kept hitting
Mhm.
my heart. And if you got some people that's Clemson fans, they'll know what I mean when I say this. They always say there's something in the hills here, and it's just a special vibe here, man. It's family oriented, which I'm sure is like that in Miami,
Mhm.
but it's just a family and environment, passionate fans, and when you hear, you just feel the love and the energy, man. So I kept coming back, and that's how I chose Clemson, man,
It's
over
funny
Florida
you
State.
it's funny you said that because I was telling you about my buddy that went to Clemson. He was Von
Mm,
Kirkland's roommate, which was Terry Smith, and they
that's
both shared the
crazy.
same thing with me. That is something about Clemson when you go through that tunnel, when you on that field,
Something
it's
about
just
it.
a different type of energy that those guys go through when they're out there. Um, my question, let's go back a little bit.
Yeah, yeah,
South Carolina Gamecocks.
yeah.
Our quarterback in
That
high school
Tina
went to South Carolina Gamecocks, Chris Norman. He actually was our quarterback in high school. He goes to South Carolina Gamecocks. They convert him from a quarterback to a punter. He winds up going to the NFL as a punter from South Carolina
Wow,
Gamecocks. Yeah.
crazy.
What was the pressure like for you to at least consider the Gamecocks? Because they hadn't
You know
had a
what?
major season since the running back, I can't think of his
Yeah.
name, was there.
The running back win. What
It was a
years?
while back when the Gamecocks first. He put the Gamecocks on the map. What was that running back's name? You remember the running
So
back?
they had Demetrius Summers, they had Corey Boyd. I think Demetrius Summers was probably the one. Oh, Derek Watson was
Go,
he was a really good running back there
go
too.
further. Go further back. Go further back.
Josh Rogers,
That's what I'm
that's what I
talking
was
about. That's
jumping
what I'm
on.
talking about. Yeah,
Yeah. So yeah,
yeah,
he was a bad man. Um, South Carolina, Columbia is only 30 minutes from my hometown.
right.
So you talking about pressure, like, hey man, and I was a 5-star recruit. I became the number one player in the state of South Carolina. So you talking about pressure. Everybody was like, hey man, look, man, the Gamecocks are literally 30 minutes away. You why not go there? But for me, again, it was I didn't care about the city, and it was something in these hills over here, man, that was just pulling on my spirit and my heart, man.
Now that you look back, we're gonna move forward with your career. Now that you look back,
Mhm.
do you do you wish there was anything you would have did different? Because let's get real.
Mhm.
If, and it's always a if
Yeah,
you
yeah.
had a went to the Gamecocks, could you have been one of the individual instruments that put them on the map? Could you been a
Oh,
one man wrecking crew for them to change the outlook of that school? I know it's a what if, but I know you think about that at times.
100%. I definitely think that I could have helped that program to definitely get better. But for me, what I would have changed on that whole recruiting process is I would have went to more schools. I
Okay.
hate that I didn't go to all those schools. I should have went to LSU. I should have went to Florida. I should have went to all the schools, man, that I had, that I had the opportunity to go to. So that's my biggest regret is not going to enough college visits. Yeah.
Evidently, you made a mark at Clemson
Mhm.
because you wind up going to the NFL,
Yeah.
which we now consider not for long.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You are a testimony of what that means, but also the resilience that happens once you leave the league.
Yeah.
I'm gonna call it
Yeah.
like it is. You are
Yeah.
resilient on what you're doing now,
Mhm.
even though you left your mark in the league and the NFL and in college and in high school. What was that like for you to go to the NFL? What was that experience like for you?
My mom crying on draft day, man, is probably the best moment of my NFL, I guess, career, besides, of course, playing and doing all that good stuff. But my mom didn't know, I, I didn't know. I knew I said it, but she was just doing what any other mom would do, man. She was taking me by that stadium. She didn't tell me that I couldn't play in the NFL.
Mm.
She didn't tell me to do nothing else. And we had no idea, man, that years later in 2010, that we would get that phone call from the Eagles. in the fifth round, and to live a childhood dream, man. And it all started by my mom riding by that stadium, South Carolina State Stadium, and then me starting to dream big, and then making it in the NFL past the 2.5 year mark.
Mm.
Because a lot of guys will make it past 2.5 years. So just doing that, man, living a childhood dream, man. Man, it was definitely an amazing accomplishment and an amazing feeling, man.
I
Truly
can
was.
see you getting worked up. I'm looking at your eyes. Just bringing back
Oh
memories,
man, a
dog.
a
Yeah,
little bit,
you,
man.
I'm gonna break you down sooner or later, whether it be about how you got there or your resentment for not going to the U. But let's go back a little bit. Let's go back a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah.
When did you? What was the decisive moment of your college career that you said, I'm going to enter the draft? What were some of those things that made you decide to enter into the draft?
Man, just the fact that I was playing in front of 85,000 people and making plays, man. And knowing that my dream was closer than I thought. Because you in the back of my mind, I knew I was like, man, okay, I know I'm gonna have a chance playing in the NFL. But when it gets close and close, it's like, holy crap, I can go do this. It's time to go do this. So just playing in front of 85,000 fans, man, and making plays. And then, of course, hearing my coaches telling me that, hey, you're going to have the opportunity to play in the NFL. So for me, that was the deciding factor for me, like, hey, I'm about to go live my childhood dream.
When they tell you this, you now
Mm,
have to become proactive. You see the stuff about to happen. And we see the mistakes
yeah,
that a lot of
yeah.
people made along that journey to the road to the NFL. Now that your coaches and stuff is telling you, hey, Ricky, you can go in the first, you can go in the second, you can go in the third. I'm gonna tell you as what happened to Christian Harris when he had a stellar game when Georgia played Alabama here in Indianapolis and projected to go in the first round of the
Uh-huh.
draft. Linebacker first off the board. We all thought that. He
Yeah.
didn't go. An unnamed linebacker got picked off the draft. So
Mhm.
things changed during this draft. He had an agent, you know, he had an agent. What did you do to prepare for that day? We know you get ready to make that decision. Did you have an agent? What was the steps that you did to you can't lock it into the draft because you don't know what the teams are going to pick. It's
Yeah.
always a projection.
Yeah.
What did you do to
Yeah.
prepare yourself for this particular moment?
Man, I had an agent, and I had lucky for me, I had strong support from my family and my friends, but I had an agent, and who pretty much took me through the whole process and surrounded me with everybody as far as what I needed for the combine, for the interviews, for the workouts, and I was projected to go late first round, 22nd pick to the New England Patriots. But when that pick came up, I don't know if you guys, you can go back and research this. In 2010, when the Patriots was on the clock at 22, they traded their pick away, and the Dallas Cowboys drafted Dez Bryant. And then when the
Yeah.
Patriots didn't draft me, that's when I fell to the fifth round. I had tore my ACL in college, so if Bill Belichick don't pick me, of course, all the other teams are going to follow suit. So I end up falling to the fifth round, but I was well prepared, man, as far as what ifs and all the possibilities of what could happen with the NFL. So my agent did everything that I think that he needed to do to prepare me for that moment and for the whole process.
So you wind up getting picked and stuff.
Yep.
What's that preparation like for you now? You didn't get, this is what I tell people, Ricky, this is what I tell people.
Yep.
If you got picked, you got money.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Whether it's $1 million, whether it's 2 million, you got money.
Got money.
Now you have to manage. I was watching the Michael Vick thing on TikTok where he says, when I got drafted by the Atlanta Falcons, I think he said like $10 million. He said, but out of that 10 million, you got to pay taxes. So now I only got this amount of money. He said, I was on the field thinking, how do I make this money last? How do I invest? How do I not get hurt? How do I do all this stuff? And I'm thinking to myself, wow, that's a lot of pressure. But he also talked briefly about the people that was grabbing out of the money because they don't understand that just because you got 10 million, you got to pay on that 10. What was it like for you? I don't need to know how much money you make because I can Google it. I'm gonna ask anyway. What was your rookie contract, and how did you approach money? Because now and the reason I'm saying this because you go around now teaching kids and you speak. So if I'm a child, I would rather know how much did you get, how did you manage to take that money, reinvest it, and how many people were really sticking their hands out because they didn't understand just because you got 10 million, you don't have 10 million.
It's crazy, man, because I heard the stories about how how everybody was going to be asking for money, man. After I got drafted, I got a phone call from somebody that I never expected to get a phone call from. And I won't mention them, but I got a phone call from them and it just blew my mind. But as soon as you get drafted, man, of course everybody like, all right, you got money, let's ask for some money. Until that, I'll say this. My mom did a really great job of protecting me from that because I didn't answer the phone for nobody really, truly. And people will try to go through my mom, and my mom would shut them down. Even my sisters and brothers, I would get mad at my mom because stuff will be happening where they would need some, money. My mom wouldn't tell me, and I would have to find out through other family members. And I was like, Mom, why would you do that? When it comes to family and you, why would you do that? But my mom was like, look, I'm not gonna bother you like that. I'm not gonna do that. So I gotta give kudos to my mom. My mom did a really good job of kind of protecting me from that. If it was something, serious, a family member came to her, she'd be like, hey, she would call me first and say, hey, how do you feel about talking to such and such? So my mom did a great job of that. But I got drafted in the 5th round. My contract was worth, I think, 4.5 million. I think my signing bonus was, oh man,
1.3 million.
Maybe a couple hundred, maybe 300, 500 grand, something like that. But after taxes, I think I only had maybe like 200K, something like that.
Yeah.
As far as signing bonus. But when you never had any kind of money, that was a lot of money, man. It was a lot of money. So I think that was the range in my first contract when I got drafted. Yeah.
When you got that phone call, you don't have to say who it was. I'm just trying to shed some light. You evidently knew this person or had some deep connection to this person. How did you first of all, what went through your mind? You don't have to say who it was. What went through your mind? How emotional impact was it for you? And how did you dismember? Because this is what happens. Let's get real. When you become famous and people see money, everybody comes at you. Yeah. And sometimes you got to have a strong will to just cut motherfuckers off.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't have that, but I did know how to I did know how to ghost people. But that phone call was, man, it was crazy to me because it was the very first phone call that I got asking for money. And the person that came from, man, they was crying, and I was just like, man, listen, man, I remember like yesterday, I was standing outside. I got drafted to the Eagles. I was standing outside my condo in Philadelphia, listening to this person cry and thinking, and I was thinking to myself, like, wow, I can't believe this. And the person that was on the other end of that phone, I knew them through one of my best friends that's still my best friends today. And I never told him to this day, but that was the first phone call that I got asking for money. And man, it just shocked me because you never know who's gonna call and ask for money. You hear the stories, and for that person to be the one to call, it was just like a shock. It was like a welcome to the NFL moment. I don't know. For me, it was definitely crazy.
Did that person have any contact with you prior?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Not like that though, but oh yeah, only through my best friend who's still one of my best friends today. Yeah. So yeah, they did have contact. Yeah.
How did you resolve it? Because you got a kind heart. So I can see you, and you got
Man.
somebody crying on the other end.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like how do you, what was going through your mind now?
So a lot of people think that, of course, now we just talked about it. When you, as soon as you get drafted, you get money right away. You don't get it right away. You gotta wait. Like I think it's like 15 days or something like that. You gotta get the contract. You gotta sit and sign the contract. They call your name, but you don't get that money right away. So it happened right after I got drafted, and I didn't have the money yet. I know it was coming.
Right.
So that was kind of how I resolved it. I was like, look, I don't have that money yet, and I think by the time I did get the money, I think that person kind of had things figured out. So
Okay.
that's kind of how I resolved that one. Yeah, and that was tough, but yeah,
Let me go deeper. And all this
yeah,
stems to, before we wrap up, this all
yeah,
stems to your character, but more importantly, to the viewers, it stems to why you need to have Ricky come out and speak at your
yeah,
schools and at your colleges, because this is real life, real shit that some
yeah.
people like to camouflage and not be authentic with what really goes on with athletes or just people in general. So let's go a little bit deeper.
Do it.
Let's go a little bit deeper here. When you had that money, people come at you with all kind of investments. What were some of the bad investments that you did, or did you make any bad investments? Because sometimes when you got money, everybody's coming at you with some type of Ponzi scheme or do this. And usually, when it comes to athletes, this is no disrespect. Luckily I didn't fall down that this thing. I'm not investing money in a restaurant unless I know how to cook.
I feel you. I don't blame you. I don't blame you. They say scared money don't make no money. Well,
Right.
I was scared. So I didn't make no investments, man. And I had opportunities to have a Jimmy John's, Anytime Fitness. I had an opportunity to, I think, own some property, but I settled my money, man. I didn't, and that's the one thing I'll tell your viewers, man, is definitely invest, but make sure you do all the homework and make
Mhm.
sure you got all the right people around you. Make sure you double back around before you make an investment, but you have to be willing to use your money and let it work for you. So I didn't do any crazy investments, man. I just set on my money, man. Because I'm from Bamberg, South Carolina. I was never a flashy guy.
Right.
Um, didn't care about clothes. Didn't care about jewelry, nothing like that. The only thing I cared about was having my Cadillac Escalade truck and having some good food. So that's all I cared about, man.
So
Yeah,
now you wind up, unfortunately, you wind up
yeah,
getting injured
yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff. What was that like? I read about it. Unfortunately, I didn't see the
Mhm.
game, but you know
Yeah.
what? I can almost s- see it in my mind on what that must have
Oh.
been like for you. What was that game-threatening injury? And you said you kind of almost prophesized your career ending like that to some degree.
Mm, hmm. That's powerful, brother. Yeah. Um, this is how we know God has a sense of humor, man. I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan.
Look,
And
okay, we're gonna keep going. That's probably the best thing you said on the whole entire show. No, I'm just bullshitting. So wait
but
a minute, Ricky. Wait, Ricky. So you wanted when the Patriots dropped, so Dallas could get
the Cowboys should
Dez
have
Bryant.
drafted
You was
me.
hoping that was gonna be your name call.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
But
okay.
but my last play came against the Dallas Cowboys, playing against Tony Romo in Dallas, and I got hurt right after halftime, pulled hammy,
Wow.
and in the new Dallas Cowboys stadium. So they got the huge screen and everything, and I just remember sitting on the bench with the ice on my hammy, looking up to that big screen, thinking like, all right, I got another opportunity to prove to myself, my teammates, that I can come back and continue to play in the NFL and continue to live my childhood dream. But the one thought that didn't come to my mind was that this might be your last play you ever played in the NFL. And it was. I never played another down in the NFL. And it took me about 2 years to get over the depression and anxiety. And then probably another 2 years or 3 years, man, to actually get over the fact that I ain't playing football no more. So it took a while for me to be able to actually say like, man, I'm cool with not playing football. So that's what the process was kind of like for me. Yeah. But throughout that process, man, with me going through the anxiety and depression and feeling embarrassed, and not knowing what I was gonna do next, God revealed to me like, hey man, your identity is not tied to football, it's tied to me. And your purpose is to work with kids and travel the world and give kids a message. So, I always tell people, and I've heard this before, you probably heard it before, any kind of failure we go through, or pain we go through, there's something beautiful that always can come from it. And
Yeah.
that's what happened for me. Yeah, happened for me.
And I'm
Yeah.
getting emotional because I can clearly relate.
Yeah.
A hamstring during the Olympic trials put me out.
Mm,
And all I knew at the time was running because that was my scholarship. Even though I played football, I was like, I've never had an injury.
yeah.
And I'm like, what do I do now? And
Yeah.
the universe opened another door. I walked in for rehab and the guy was a bodybuilder. He was like, hey, you ever thought about bodybuilding? I said, what the fuck is that?
It's
He's
amazing,
like,
man.
do this, do this. I was like, well, dude, I'm 100 and blah, 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 blah. He said, you got genetics.
Mm,
I'm like, really? My next question was, can I make money? He said, yeah. If you dominate,
yeah.
the door, like you said, open up. But
That's
to move
amazing.
forward with that, when I retired in 2004, I had to ask myself the same question. How do I want to go out? I
Yeah.
want to go out on my own terms, but it was the universe that said, you know what, your body can't handle this strenuous lifting. You got to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And I had to really come to a reality check. Like you, I went through the depression, the whole 9 yards. It took me a while to get my mind back and say, I don't want to be identified. I don't mind being identified as an athlete. I don't mind being identified as a professional bodybuilder, football player, blah, blah, blah. But I knew I had I knew I had more to offer than that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's funny how people put athletes, and you know this because you just went through this, in a particular thing. And we feel like our identity becomes so attached to it that, believe it or not, it's hard to detach.
Yeah.
Once I
Facts.
detached, I felt so much. You know what's so funny, Ricky? I don't even talk about bodybuilding. I don't talk
Mm,
about football to nobody. Unless somebody brings it up, they go, "Hey, you got a couple of trophies." I say, "But do you know how many trophies I threw away?"
same way, brother.
I said, "Do you know how
Same way.
many I threw away?" I don't even, and this is even more. I'm gonna go back to your story. This is even more trip. Nobody even knew I was an Olympic candidate in 1984.
That's crazy.
The way they find out is the way that most people find out. My ex found out because my dad had news clippings. She goes, "I didn't know you did." I said, "Because I don't talk about it. I'm
Yeah.
something else now. My life has changed."
Mm,
But to
come
go
on.
back to you, and my hat's off to you, the fact that you went to therapy, that you did
Oh
these
yeah.
things to keep your mental health more important than as well as your physical. How long did that take for you to get to that level? Because I think a lot of the young kids need to understand this wasn't an overnight process. And how deep did you actually go before you realized that you needed some help to get out of this identity of being recognized as this football player?
Man, it first and foremost, I didn't want to accept the fact that I was, you know, going through that depression and anxiety because it was tied to the fact that I wasn't playing in the NFL. So, man, it took. I literally stayed in my house for 2 years, man. I didn't go out and unless I had to. Well, I would go out and work out, and then eventually, I think I started to volunteer at a high school, which is a whole nother story, but I started volunteering at a high school. So, but for 2 years, I would not leave my house unless I had to do, you know, something like that, like that, with working out or coaching.
Hmm.
Then it took probably another 3 years, man, for me to actually get to the point where I could say, all right, I'm okay with not playing football. But then in 2020, and before 2020, every now and then I still, had some. I would go through some moments where I would be depressed. I
Hmm.
would go through some anxiety, and this is how God worked, man. 2020 comes, and of course, unfortunately, COVID happens, and the
Yeah.
world shut down. And right before the world shut down, I think 3 days before the world shut down, this guy hit me up and he was like, "Hey, man, I know you dealt with anxiety and depression before. There's a place where a lot of professional athletes go to that your NFL insurance would pay for you to, get some help." And I'm like, "Man, I ain't trying to do all that."
Right.
The world, the COVID started happening. And I was like, "All right, man, I'll go." I go to this place in California, man, and that's where I started to learn so much about me, man. I started to learn that I'm supposed to be in nature. I started to learn that I love arts and craft. I started to learn about who I am, man. I started to learn about some of my other gifts and talents that I have.
Hmm.
So it took me, man, man, I guess almost 10 years for me to actually get to the point where I could say that, okay, you know what? I'm good mentally, and now I know who I am. I know what I like. I know what I'm supposed to be doing.
Hmm.
Let's go that way.
It's a two-part question, Ricky. Let's go back a little
Yeah,
bit. And hey,
yeah,
first of all, thank you for coming on, sharing such a great story, man. Because
yeah,
you're,
sure.
you're a brother that's clearly transparent about your story, and I like that. The
Yeah,
and that's good for kids, the youth to
yeah.
see the transparency here. But let's go back a little bit. During this therapy session, you realized that you had other gifts. How much of those gifts were actually locked inside of you?
Mm,
Let me go back. Let me go back.
yeah.
Art, nature, all
Mhm.
of these things you had hidden in a closet. None of it ever wanted to come out during this elevation of football.
Football was my identity. When I came to Clemson, I can't lie to you, Andre. I can't lie to you. When I came to Clemson on one of my visits, my recruiting coach, Coach Ron West, he pointed to the mountain because you can see the mountains from Clemson because we surround by mountains. He pointed to the mountains. He was like, "Man, that were the mountains right there." And in my mind, I was like, "Man, I don't care about no mountains. I can care less about mountains."
Right.
So I ignored the fact, 4 years at Clemson, I ignored the fact that I was surrounded by nature.
Wow.
Oftentimes, as human beings, we don't listen to our spirit, man.
Right.
And I'm willing to bet all those times I was in nature, my spirit was trying to tell me, like, "Hey, man, you need to be in nature more. Hey, man, you need to be hiking." I was always a person that learned by seeing things.
Hmm.
I'm a visual learner. Right in that moment, I should have known, like, man, you know what? I love looking at stuff. So, like, let me get into some arts and craft. But I go to this place and in California, man, I don't know if when I go to California, I don't think about mountains, man. I'm in California. I'm in California. I'm looking, I'm like, California's surrounded by mountains, man. Like what?
Yeah.
I never thought about that. So I'm in California and at this place, they took me hiking. And I remember feeling like a little kid in a candy store, man.
Really.
I was like, what the heck is this? And then you might laugh, but I always thought about coloring. I was like, man, I would love to color. One day I'm sitting in a therapy session and the therapist said something about no, she picked up a coloring book and was about to move it. And I said, yo, can I get that? And when I say she jumped so quick to hand it to me, she was like, "Yeah, here, take it,
Right.
take it." And I was like, "All right." And when I took that coloring book, man, and started coloring arts and craft, man. And then what ended up happening was I was hiking one day in California, and this other guy started playing jazz music, and I was like, "What is that?" So then, so now, like, all right, when I hike, I'm listening to jazz music. When I color, I'm gonna listen to jazz music. And for me, it's a coping skill. It feeds my spirit,
Right.
and it helps. It feeds me mentally, man. It feeds my spirit.
You know, it's
Yeah,
funny that you use that word coping skill, and I think we've all have to find out what our coping skills is. It's funny
got you.
that you said this because I run into a lot of people through my life's journey
Mhm.
who really they can make tons of money
I'll be happy.
and not be happy.
I'll be happy.
And you know what I say to them? Why ain't you happy? And the number one thing, they're afraid to fail. And I'm like, you know how many times I fucking failed
Yeah, yeah,
and got up?
yeah.
You have to see the bigger picture. But more importantly, I asked them this question: what's your purpose? Because it's definitely not about me. So what's your purpose? And half the people can never answer that simple question. You found your purpose. It took the falls. It took the NFL, the proper the prophecy of going wanting to go to the Cowboys and getting hurt on that field. Come on, man. Do I need to keep preaching?
You can't write that. Only God can write that.
And look at you
Only
now, dude. I'm getting emotional. We gonna do the Miami Hurricane thing later. But
thank God.
just look at your journey, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The manifestation that happened, your mom taking you here, the phone call for somebody that you never thought would ask you for money. You know what I mean? Look at you now. But I'm gonna go back real quick before we end the show. And once again, thank you so much for coming on to sharing this story.
Yeah.
I know what it's like to go through them depression states, dude. I stayed in the house the same way you did. Stayed in the house. I remember going to Florida. My sister called me, my baby sister. We call her the gatekeeper of the family. She's like, "Hey,
Mhm.
you need to come to Florida." I went to Florida. I didn't train for 3 years, dude. I didn't want to know nothing about bodybuilding. I didn't want to know nothing about nobody. I was embarrassed. Only time people saw me was late at night when I went to Publix. You didn't see me during the daytime. I wore oversized shirts. Seriously. So nobody could see I lost anything. No weight. You know, I was dead. My sister was like, you gotta get out of this. You gotta get out of this. You gotta get out of this funk. And when I was able to get out of it, it was the greatest thing because I realized at the end I was attaching myself to what people were recognizing me as the beast, dude that goes on the stage and kick ass. But the deal was when I did not place in my first show ever, dude, I did a Deion Sanders. I was going to take my Porsche and run off the fucking road in Cincinnati. My friend Felicia called me and said, "Cool, what's up?" I said, "Felicia, I didn't win." She's like, "Dre, what are you talking about?" I said, "I've never, ever not did a show that I didn't place in the top 5. I didn't win." She was like, "Cool. You got to rethink. Pull that car over right now and rethink." And I rethought and I said to myself, there's 30 some guys in my division that didn't even make the top 15. What
Mhm.
do I have to be shitty about? Because, oh, I know what happened. I was endorsing a product that washed me out. And I remember Arnold Schwarzenegger and all them came to me and said, "Dre, what happened?" I said, "I don't know. I look great." He said, "Dude, you look like a baby. You had no definition." I had to get myself back in check, get my mind back right. But that was years of, like you just said, going into that depression. So before I go any deeper, I didn't have a supporting cast. My fans was somewhat of a supporting cast, but they're used to seeing you win.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
remember my buddies, they were like, my fans was like, "I never seen Dre cry before."
Mm.
They didn't even know
Mhm.
how to come to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You and your mom were real close as you was going through this. Who was your number one confidant during this?
Man, I had a really close friend, believe it or not, out in Colorado. Her name was Marlena, man. And doing this, and my best friend, the guy I was talking about that was related to the person that called asking for money. Those two people were um, in my life at in that moment that was, encouraging me, along with my agent and my financial advisor. But those two were the people that was in my life at that moment that was encouraging me because I wasn't answering the phone for nobody else, man, because I
Yeah.
was embarrassed and didn't want to talk to them. So I had those two people in my life that was encouraging me. Yeah. Yeah.
Looking back on your life,
Mm,
a beautiful journey, beautiful story. Let's call it what it
mm,
is.
yeah.
Hell, I'm getting emotional. No, I shouldn't be getting emotional on my own show. I should be making you emotional.
You almost got me a couple times.
I have you getting emotional when we talk about Miami Hurricanes, but let's go forward with this. Such a beautiful journey.
Uh,
You're now mentoring kids.
yeah. Yeah.
What is
Yeah.
the most impactful thing? Tell me what's that's like for you, and why are you doing that?
Because God put God put that calling on my life, and He revealed that to me when I was going through um, transition out of NFL, and within those 2 years, God revealed to me that, hey man, your purpose is to work with kids and to do motivational speaking,
Mm-hmm.
something that I never thought I would ever do. So when God revealed to me that I was supposed to be working with kids, this is what I asked God. I said, well, what do you want me to tell them? And I said, you want me to do motivational speaking? I took speech classes all the way up into middle school. I stuttered, all my life. I still don't say words the right way. I said, you want me to do motivational speaking?
Right.
And God said, yeah, I want you to work with kids and I want you to travel the world and tell the kids that they got all the power and authority to help change the world and make it a better place. And I want you to tell them that there's 3 words that they can use to do that: lead, be fearless. And the last one is the one that you started to do when you saw that stadium, South Carolina State Stadium, and that's dream big.
Mm.
And for me, man, when I figured out my purpose, man, I told God, I said, hell yeah, let's go. Let's go. I do it. I do it. So I am passionate about kids, man. I love them to death. My I tell kids all the time I love them, man. And on my voicemail, it said I tell people I love them. And
I
my
saw
daughter,
that.
my 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 oldest daughter called one day and left a voicemail. She said, "I see you don't got time for me." And she said, "Why you out here telling people that you don't know you love them?" So I
Wow.
always so when I go into the school, my last thing that I tell kids is I love them. And I've had some kids say, "You don't even know us." So I tell them that story about my daughter saying that. But I tell them, I said, man, when God revealed to me that my purpose was to work with y'all, oh, I fell in love with y'all right then.
Wow.
So I I love y'all, and my love is real for y'all. So man,
I can
work with
see
kids.
I can see this is
Oh
bringing.
man, let me
I
tell
can
you
see
something,
that you're
man.
getting emotional, man. I can see that. I can see the
Let me tell you
passion.
something, man.
I can see
Let
the
me tell you
passion.
something. Look, until God tell me to stop, until He took me from this earth, man, I'm gonna encourage kids until it's time to go, man. I'm all about it. All
Ricky,
about it.
how can the viewers reach out to you and support and understand more about your cause?
Man, I got my website and it's called the You guys can go on there. Of course, I'm on all social media platforms. IG, the Dance and Motivational Speaker, IG, RSAP Foundation. I'm on good old Facebook as Ricky Sapp. I'm on TikTok as King Ricky 91, the Dance and Motivational Speaker. So those are some of the platforms you guys can reach out to me. And I have my kids book available as well on my website, and that is called Dream Big. Yep.
Before we wrap up, tell a little bit about the kids book. I didn't know you had that.
Yeah. So this marks the 1 year anniversary of it. Last year, my book came out in April, and it's called Dream Big, and it's for kids from about first to sixth grade, and it tells a story about how I got into playing football, how I went by that stadium, and then how I became you know, how I got in trouble in middle school, and then how I became the first person to get drafted from my hometown, the first to graduate, and now, you know, traveling the world speaking to kids. So my kids' book came out last year around this time in April, man, and it's on Amazon. But if you go to my website, it'll pop right up. Yep.
We didn't get into the kid getting in trouble. We got to do part two on that one. You're hiding
Yeah.
things from us, Ricky. You're hiding things,
Yeah.
but that's cool.
Got kicked out of middle school in eighth grade. Yep. Yeah.
Kicked out of school in the 8th grade. Wow.
Yeah. 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 It's in the book though. It's in the book.
Ricky,
Yeah.
thank you so much for taking time to come on the show.
Thank you, brother.
Definitely make sure you guys reach out to him, support. We have to learn that we got to know what our purpose is, and clearly, you know what the purpose is. I think all adults need to know that right now, out of COVID, everything has changed, and we need leaders, especially in our community. We have tons of. That's what we're lacking. We're lacking leaders with our youth. You are definitely a leader. I like that. Whatever we can do here at the I Am Beast Network to amplify your voice, we're going to do it. Once again, thank you for coming on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another exciting episode of the Andre the Beast Crayton show.